Back in the 1990s, excuse me, there was a number one sitcom that ran for about 9 years, Seinfeld. What a what a show. I mean, it was four neurotic Manhattanites that lived for themselves and pleasure and were oblivious to any form of goodness and consciousness of people around them. These folks were weird and they were demented. And in the end of the episode, the final episode, they were all thrown in prison for being horrible people. That's the kind of show. And if we don't look at that show as a satire on the hedonistic culture in which we live, we're missing something, I would think. Now, whether it was intended that way by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, I'll never know that unless I can talk to them. But that was the show in a nutshell. Anyway, there was one episode in particular where Jerry was in his apartment, and on the counter was a present, a gift. He had it partially opened, and Elaine walks in, and she says, "Hi, Jerry, what is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's a gift that I got from they share the same dentist, Dr. Watley. Oh, Watley gave me this." And she said, "What is it?" "Well, it's a relabeler. It's a label maker." And so Jerry looks at her and she says, "Wait a minute, that must be a popular gift today because I gave one of those to the nickel drops." And she says, "To him." "Wait a minute, let me see that." And she runs over and picks it up. "This looks exactly like the one I gave to him. He recycled my gift. He's a regifter." Oh my gosh. Well, today in our parable, we have the parable of the landowner with these servants, 3 of them. And they are given the task. They're given talents, 5, 2, and 1, according to their abilities, to take care of their landowner's property in his absence. He's going on a long journey. These servants are given an enormous amount of wealth. A talent is a very significant amount of wealth. In the Bible, we have many different coins. We have the mite, which is like the penny. We have the drachma or the denarius, which is the Greek and Roman. Those are the Greek and Roman silver coins that are equivalent to a day's labor. Well, a talent was worth 6,000 denarii, which means about 20 years of labor. So you do the math. We've got 5, 2, and 1. These servants were entrusted and given great wealth by the landowner. And he had an expectation from them. It says he gave them. These were gifts that he entrusted to them. We know how the story turns out. At the end, when he comes back to reconcile and settle the accounts, "I made 5 more, says the one who was given 5. "I made 2 more, says the one that was given 2. But we got a problem with number 1. He buried the gift that was given to him. And he digs it up and gives it back. He gives it back. I imagine him tossing it back at the landowner and saying, "There it is. There's what you gave me. Now you can have it back." The landowner comes up with some pretty powerful words. And in the Revised Standard, it's a little clearer. He says, "You wicked, slothful servant." He calls him worthless. Sloth is a very important word here because he's not particularly lazy. Sloth is from the Latin acedia, which means a resistance to do good, to not respect or do what needs to be done, especially towards God. He rejected this and stood his ground and defiantly, disrespectfully buried the gift he was given in the ground and then just throws it back at the end, thinking he's off the hook. Oh no. Oh no. What we have been given Each one of us is an incredible gift. Our lives, everything that we have, has been given to us. St. Paul asks the Corinthians, what have you received that has not been given to you? The biological possibilities of our conception alone, given the billions of genetic possibilities, is a gift beyond measure. The clay, the humanity out of which we were made and knit together in our mother's womb, was breathed into by the Holy Spirit. And we became a person. The Holy Spirit breathed and he said, Gary, Doug. He said, Margie. And we became a living being, just like Adam was, that God formed us, a gift of uncalculable greatness, just to be given life. And on top of that, he didn't stop there. He gave us all natural abilities, and he gave us spiritual gifts. And he's called us to himself, and he's given us the greatest gift of all, himself, very present to us in the Eucharist. And the question becomes, what will we do with all of these wonderful gifts that we've been given? What will we do? Now, notice that this servant, we call him a servant, but he didn't serve much. He's filled with an excuse when he throws his talent back. He says, for he accuses God of reaping where he has not sowed. And if you look at the text closely, the response of the landowner is, sow. I reap where I do not sow? Not so. No pun intended. Not so. Because God sows everywhere. If we take this one statement, for to everyone who has more will be given, and he will grow rich. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. If we do a little cross-check to the parable of the sower, we find these words nearly identical. And we know from the parable of the sower that God, in his great love and kindness and generosity, sows indiscriminately everywhere, abundantly. Throw it on the path, throw it in the rocky ground, throw it on the weeds and the wild thorns that grow up, and throw it in, some hits on the good soil. God is a generous, comprehensive sower of life, goodness. This was a lame excuse from this servant. Well, you reap where you did not sow. Not true. Not true. God has sown in our lives. He has given us so very much. Five, two, one. He's given us all so much. The people that aren't here today, that are out there, as we like to say, out there in the world, that are not at the table in thanking God for his many, many gifts, have hardened themselves, perhaps. They haven't recognized or know of that great, great gift that God has placed in our lives. And it's our responsibility, really. It's our turn to go to them. And since we've been given everything comes from God, we can't help it. We're called to be regifters. We are God's regifters, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that. We shouldn't be afraid to re-gift what we've been given, because that is what God has done. And as we give of ourselves, We become like God. We become like Jesus, who was sown into the ground, a grain of wheat, and he produced a great harvest of life and goodness. But we must follow him and give ourselves to him in this way. God bless you, and may you sense that joy. And may we all come to have that joy that the Master will come to us and say, well done. I gave you this, and you brought me more. I gave you this, and you did well, servant of God. God bless you.